I have to tell you, I think in some ways I may have bit off more than I can chew for this particular topic, choosing making better decisions. It seemed like such a good decision at the time when I decided to present this as a part of Webinar Wednesday. It is ironic, is it not, that perhaps that I struggled in the creation of the content. And let me take 2 seconds and kind of tell you how we come about with the topic, come up with the topics for Webinar Wednesday, and then a little bit of our process for creating the content that you guys enjoy each week. So typically speaking, the topics come out of conversations we have with others or projects that we're working on ourselves or challenges that I see in day-to-day business. That was what inspires me to come up with a solution, and those solutions are what I like to share with you. And this particular module on making better decisions grew out of my work on a course that we've just launched, a boot camp for Patreon creators, to teach Patreon creators to teach creators how to more effectively build a Patreon community. And a big part of that course was helping creators decide what content they should be sharing as perks, making a decision on all of the different options they have, and then coming up with a system to figure out how to share the most effective perks or benefits, bonuses for their community. And I think I came up with a terrific system for it. And I got so excited about it. I thought we can use this in multiple places, in multiple ways, which indeed we can. And so I'm going to do a webinar Wednesday on it. And so we title it Making Better Decisions. And so that was the genesis. Now, in reality, as we prepare for each week's webinar, a couple of weeks before, maybe 3 weeks before, I start gathering all of the information that I'm going to need, reading some resources, starting to think about how we're going to present it in this webinar. And at that point there, I started to choke a little bit because we'd already scheduled it. We'd already planned what we were doing. And I realized that making better decisions is far more challenging than just making decisions, deciding what perks you're going to give in Patreon. We make decisions. That's all day long. We make decisions, and so it's almost a very deep level, kind of almost academic pursuit to determine why we make bad decisions, how we make bad decisions, and how to make better decisions. So I thought that I could just sweep in and share some of this content with you, and it would be awesome. So what we've had to do, this is a long way to get to a slight change in our title: Making Better Decisions, Personal Productivity Decision Edition. Because I think that I can help you make better decisions around deciding what you're going to do and the tasks you're going to do and how you're going to manage your personal productivity. This is not going to help you make a better decision on who to marry or what house to buy, although you can probably use some of the techniques, but I'm not purporting myself as anything of an expert in those spaces. So I just want to make sure that that is right up front before we get going. So let's dive into it now. Let's dive into the content. And we're going to talk about the types of decision making that there is. We're going to take an honest assessment of what we do well and what we don't do well in decision making. Then we're going to go over and we're going to talk about the actual process. We're going to spend quite a bit of time working through the different processes. And then a little bit of kind of advice of things that we can do to change our habits, to change the habits of how we make decisions, because decision making is a habit just as anything else is a habit. And if we're in a habit of making bad decisions, it's pretty hard to break that. So how can we break that? And then, of course, as is normal here on Webinar Wednesday, we'll talk a little bit about the techniques and, of course, the technology behind it. But let's start here in the types of decision making. And I identified, and I'm sure there's more than this, but I identified 4 kind of large overview areas that you have to make decisions in. We have to make business decisions on a daily basis, personal decisions, consumer decisions, and content decisions of the type of content that we're going to be creating, which is also productivity decisions as well as in there. I'm going to start by just briefly addressing the business decision-making process, because if you do a search online, you will find the most resources related to making good, informed decisions for businesses. And they've got all these acronyms and these systems that are almost religions in the way that people apply them. And perhaps you've gone through exercises where you've gone through one of these different processes and this decision-making processes, especially if you're in a larger company. But things like the SWOT, or the rapid decision-making process. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, where you do this overall analysis to help you make better decisions. or the rapid one, which is all about engagement, about making sure that your stakeholders and your employees and everybody is in agreement and working together towards a decision, so that you don't have a top-down decision, but you have consensus coming from your community. So you've got these decision-making processes, of which I'm not going to spend any time talking about today other than what we've done, because there's plenty of resources online and plenty of experts and specialists who know way more about this than me. So we will leave you to explore that on your own should you choose. Similarly, personal decisions, who you want to marry, where you want to live, those sorts of things, I'm going to leave that for people who are better equipped as well. And consumer decisions, that's a topic that I would be happy to talk about, but it's not what I want to focus on today. Instead, I want to focus on personal productivity, how you decide what you're going to do and where you're going to spend your time. And that also the type of content, what you're going to be building within your business, because we make editorial and content decisions on an ongoing basis. And those were the decisions that I was going through, trying to teach, when I decided to start to do this particular webinar. So that's where we're going to concentrate our efforts today, is in that space, personal productivity and in content. So we'll begin by taking what I hope is an honest assessment of your current method. And I think one of the things we all need to do is we do need to accept that we're probably not great decision makers. History tells us that we aren't great decision makers. If we were, 42% of marriages or so would not fail. And what is it about the human condition that it's difficult for us to be consistent in good things like eating well and exercising and making good decisions? But it seems so easy for us to make bad decisions on an ongoing basis, to eat poorly, to not exercise. All the things that we should be doing seem to be much harder than the things that are kind of counterproductive to us, which we seem to embrace and become masters of almost effortlessly. And it all comes down to the habits. And I think with our decision-making process, just like our mental health, just like our physical health, just like our diet, we have to train ourselves to think differently and look at what we're doing in order to improve the process. We can improve our decision-making by looking at it under the light of day. So that's kind of the beginning of the goal that we're going to do today, is helping you come up with a better decision-making process for your personal productivity and for your content creation. A lot of us as well end up with kind of analysis paralysis, where we decide our decision is that we decide and we let nature take its course. And you have to commend what the cost of doing that is, of drifting kind of aimlessly along the path. And I know a lot of us do it, and we all occasionally do it because our energy is low and we aren't prepared. Making decisions can be hard. It can be a trying process. So we want to avoid that if we can. And at the end of the day, one thing that I will say to you that I think I've done pretty well, and I think we all need really pay attention to, is when it comes down to the final decision, aligning the decisions that you make with your values is never a mistake. You're always, even if it's a decision that isn't as profitable or it doesn't get the ball as far downfield, if it aligns with your values, whereas a decision to not align with your values would have produced something more, I think in the long haul that you're going to be farther behind and far worse off if you decide to compromise your values at any point along the way. So with that as a caveat and kind of an overview, let's dive in and let's start taking a look at the decision-making process. Now, this is something that if you do a search online, you will find